Alright, let's do this one more time. 1 year ago I made my first video essay and it was all about finding a way to talk negatively about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. This was the first video on my channel to pass 100 views, and since then my channel is now at 2,000 subscribers with 2 videos passing 100,000 views. This whole time I've been making video essays that are 100% my true and honest opinions. But I definitely had poor motives when I made my first Spider-Man video, and seeing as how my Batman video was my first video to really blow up, I figured let's just do the exact same thing I did with that, but with Spider-Man. And as I started writing the script, I realized how many thoughts I actually had on Spider-Man movies, and I figured I'd cut myself some slack and break the idea into 3 videos where I'll talk about each series of Spider-Man movies. So if you only have an interest in hearing me talk about, let's say, the Raimi movies, you can just watch the Raimi video. Or if you just want to hear my thoughts on the Amazing movies, you can just watch my Amazing video, and then same thing with the MCU Spider-Man. So with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Please forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. 1 year ago, I made a video where I spoke negatively about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy in the hopes of upsetting fanboys and getting hate clicks in order to grow my channel. In said video, I tried to find a very specific belief to justify the many wrongs I spoke, but it's time I reveal the truth about that video. While I still find some truth in what I said about how Sam Raimi's Spider-Man has the least heroic morals in comparison to the other live-action Spider-Man, what I actively chose to ignore to add to the video was that was the only real negative thought I could have about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, because I truly and wholeheartedly love Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. Yes, I love Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. I mean, looking at all the other superhero movies coming out at the time, the Spider-Man movies were leagues above the others. And it may be a bit unfair to compare the Spider-Man movies to much older projects. I think that when they came out, the first 2 Spider-Man movies were the best superhero movies ever made. Now, again, not a lot of competition there. I mean, it was the Superman movies and the Batman movies, but still, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies were unlike anything else, and I feel like they still are. Right, so a year ago, I shit on the Raimi movies, and now I'm saying I love them. So what's going on here? Well, as someone who has a pretty good idea of the internet, I know that people love to hate click, so I figured if I talk negatively about something the internet loves, they would click. And for that purpose, I mean, it worked. Now, I didn't just choose to attack the Raimi movies all willy-nilly. No, I knew exactly what I was doing, and I have never and will never actually lie in any of my videos. I'll make a lot of jokes and be really sarcastic, but I only ever share my actual opinion on the topics. And to an extent, I do stand by my original point. And if you let me, I'd like to try to explain that point a little better. I want to share my thoughts in a way that's not framing it in a primarily negative light in the hopes of upsetting people. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy tells one of the most human stories I've ever seen in a movie. Peter's not just an average kid. No, Peter is a loser. Everyone hates Peter, and everyone gives Peter shit constantly. I mean, this bus driver is the worst person in the entire trilogy, maybe even in any Spider-Man movie. But then, this 37-year-old kid gets superpowers. Now, what's the first thing you, probably an almost average person, does with superpowers? Well, you probably do exactly what Peter did. You use them to help you get money or fame or both. You use those powers selfishly. Now, the difference with Peter is that because he acted selfishly, someone died, and that someone was his Uncle Ben, who was only ever good to him and only ever wanted what's best for him. Peter learned firsthand that with great power comes great responsibility, and so he chooses to use his powers to try to help others. It's the definitive Spider-Man story. Sam Raimi did such a good job introducing us to the character of Peter Parker and showing us his growth into Spider-Man. I'll get back to praising the first movie in a bit, but with all that in mind, let's just jump to the second Spider-Man movie, where we really start to see the struggles of living 2 lives. In Spider-Man 2, Peter is an asshole. I mean, what's he doing being late to work all the time? The people of New York need their pizza, and they need it now. And Peter's just always showing up late, and it's losing the business money. Peter's an asshole. And he's also always late to his classes. I mean, come on, the classes are for more than just Peter, and it can't just wait on him, and it wouldn't be fair to give Peter an exception, especially when he never has a good reason for being late. Peter is an asshole. And Peter, my guy, you need to pay your rent. That's how this whole living arrangement works. In order to live in a place, you need to be able to pay to live there. And, you know, since he doesn't, Peter's an asshole. And oh my god, Peter just never goes to MJ's play, even though it means so much to her. But he's just always so busy with something else. I mean, after all that, can you really argue that Peter's not an asshole? Well, yes. It's because he's Spider-Man and he's devoting his time to protecting the people of New York. Now, with that knowledge, Peter deserves a pass for literally everything. He shouldn't be hated by his friends or be punished all the time for being late, and he shouldn't need 2 other jobs. He should be compensated for protecting the people much like police officers or firefighters would. But there are obvious complications in that if the wrong people know who Spider-Man is, who knows what might happen to Peter or, more importantly, the people Peter cares about. It's just too great of a risk for anyone to know the truth about Peter, so he keeps it a secret. But eventually the burden of being Spider-Man became too much for Peter, and after the worst night of his life, Peter ends up with a complete mental block on his Spider-Man powers. And then Peter made a decision that he was Spider-Man no more. And this was where the idea for my first video was born. The idea that this Peter chose not to be a hero at all. Like, no exceptions, or, at least at first. Now, I think it's important to talk about my interpretation of a superhero, or even just a hero. A hero is a symbol and an inspiration to be so much better than what we could be. And to do that not for yourself, but for the people who need it the most. Yes, I think of Superman, and yes, I think of Captain America, and it does not help that I've been watching too much My Hero Academia and One Punch Man. But I think that what makes a hero is always taking into account others as much as you would yourself, no matter who it is you're saving, or how dangerous the situation is. Seeing Peter walk away from someone calling out for help, and only getting this small moment of reflection just doesn't feel like enough. I think of how other heroes wouldn't be able to sleep for a week because they let someone get hurt when they could have stepped in and done something. And it's not just Superman or Captain America that would do that. No, in fact, I specifically think about this scene from Daredevil.
I realized how many sirens there actually were. How much this city suffered every single night. For years, I buried my head and turned away. Then, one night, a little girl, crying in her bed in a building down the block. Her father liked to go to her room late at night. Well, I couldn't do anything to help that little girl. But I could. And I never slept better.
The idea that the only way for you to actually live with yourself is knowing that you did all you can to help someone else, with no thought of personal gain. That's how I see heroes. And I also do want to take this time to bring up some things that tie into the idea of the heroics of Spider-Man that I don't think I mentioned in my first video, and I'm not going back to watch it because it's a bad video, and after this I don't think anyone should watch it. But it's when Spider-Man and Doc Ock are having their first fight, and Peter isn't immediately like, "Wait, Dr. Octavius, what are you doing? I know it's you because I watched you attach those metal arms to your spine. Why are you here robbing a bank and hurting people?" But nah, Peter's kind of just like, "Yeah, another crazy evil scientist is trying to rob a bank, whatever." And then after saving Aunt May, he just leaves and never thinks twice about how the insane and incredibly intelligent Dr. Otto Octavius, who has 4 AI robot arms that make him an incredibly fierce opponent, just robbed a bank and got away. We know Otto is capable of making a weird energy machine that is very capable of putting a lot of people in danger. But no, it's fine. Peter continues to never think about it until Otto Octavius kidnaps the girl he loves. Just feel like that aspect of it was overlooked, but also not really important in the grand scheme of things. So what really matters is the choice. Peter made the human choice. He made the choice I would have. Actually, no, he made a much better choice than I would have. I would have gone straight back to cage fighting or whatever else I could use my powers for my own gain. So please don't think I'm trying to say that this Peter is by any means a bad person. I'm not one to think that inaction makes you a bad person, but in the specific argument of heroic morals, that's where this scene becomes important. And all that being said, I'm still very open to the idea that this Peter is actually the most heroic Spider-Man, based on the fact that he may have the hardest struggles in his personal life and still went back to being a superhero and helping others. And it's probably also important to bring up how destructive all the heroes I mentioned before can be. How devoting everything you have to a single cause, no matter how righteous or just it may be, can still be harmful.
The thing that drives him to sacrifice everything for the sake of his mission. That's not me.
And also, yeah, it kind of had to be MJ that Doc Ock was kidnapping, because if not, then it doesn't have as much relevance to the character of Peter for the movie we're watching. So from the film perspective, that's where the whole heroic morals kind of doesn't matter anymore, when it's more important that we are progressing our characters in meaningful ways. Okay, so hopefully that's a better explanation than my first video, and now we can get into other aspects of the Raimi trilogy. And if I may, I'd like to take some time to acknowledge what we already know is bad. Spider-Man 3 has too many plot lines. Yes, the symbiote was a bad, dumb idea from Avi Arad. Yes, we all know that one. And I think the other one people have brought up is that Harry and MJ kind of suck as characters. I never find it distracting distracting from the story, but I do notice that their characters always feel more like plot devices for Peter's story than any kind of real characters of their own. Like, okay, in Spider-Man 3, when MJ gets fired from Broadway, and she goes and gets a new job as a singing waitress, and all of that is only used as something for her to not tell Peter about, but instead tell Harry about, to add the idea that Peter and MJ are having problems, and, you know, she goes to Harry with her problems, and it's causing more problems for Peter and Harry. Wow. But I feel like this could have been a big moment for MJ to realize, like, oh, maybe she didn't really like Broadway because it was so demanding of her, and she didn't really like all the critics, but when she gets her new job and she's away from all the critics, she can start to really fall in love with the art of performance or something. Just something to help the character that, like, is specific to her and doesn't have to tie back into Peter. Now Harry, he's bad for all kinds of other reasons. Like, the dude's dad was his whole life, apparently, to the point that he's cool with knowing that his dad was an evil terrorist who dressed up in a goblin costume and did almost kill him a few years ago. He's just, like, totally cool with all that and is all about, like, revenge on Spider-Man, and I hate Spider-Man, and I'll take the goblin serum even though my dad was a terrorist, and I'll be a terrorist and try to kill Spider-Man too, but I hate Spider-Man because he killed my dad, but maybe he didn't, I don't know, right? But then after learning that death wasn't actually caused by Spider-Man,
the blade that pierced his body came from his glider.
even though he doesn't know that Spider-Man didn't grab the glider and stab Goblin with it. Like, look, he's trying to do that right now. But Harry just immediately is like, all right, I'm good now, and I'm gonna go sacrifice myself for Peter, even though it's kind of still, like, unearned because I made his girlfriend break up with him, which, side tangent, was, like, way too easy for MJ. Like, was this just acting, or was she, like, kind of not all that upset to break up with Peter anyway? Whatever. Go back to Harry sacrificing himself. Could Harry have just, like, I don't know, pushed Venom or something instead of, like, jumping in front of the glider? Like, I guess he has to die, and I guess it's fun to do it with the glider again, but I don't know. You've proven my point, though. Someone else could have gotten the glider and stabbed your dad. Like, whatever, he has to die, and I just don't care, right? Like, his character didn't do enough for me to be saddened by this. And Toby and James Franco had a weird chemistry, which might be because they didn't get along well in real life or something. What can you do? All right, now I got one more big problem. No, you know what? This is genuinely my biggest problem with Spider-Man 2, okay? We're watching Spider-Man 2, right? Just you and me. No one else, just you and me. Don't ask how we found each other or why we're watching Spider-Man 2. Just we're watching Spider-Man 2, all right? You're watching Spider-Man 2. And it's the scene where everyone is about to watch Otto Octavius hold the power of the sun in the palm of his hand, and right before he does, this man busts out 4 AI-controlled robot arms that are impervious to heat, magnets, and being cut, apparently. What the fuck? Why? Why is no one freaking out about this? Why is everyone so goddamn casual about the entire, like this man in his like spare time created artificially intelligent robot arms that link up to your fucking brain so you can control them? Motherfucker. Harry's out here, he won't shut up about the Nobel Prize. Do you have any idea what this could do for amputees? Did you play Marvel Spider-Man PS4 where that's the goddamn My God. Okay, so anyway, he busts this out. It's like, yeah, no, I made it in my side time. It's gonna help me control the power of the sun in the palm of my hands. Don't worry about it. And like, no, that's just it. No one worries well, that's not true. That's not true. Because you got this lady, right? And she's like, but what if the AI take control? Like, bitch, why are you so casually talking about artificially intelligent robot arms? I have watched these movies so many times in the last year. Anyone in the comments point out to me when this was normalized in the goddamn universe. When I need it to be canon in the universe. They're like, oh yeah, no, artificially intelligent robot arms, that's a thing. So we're not like freaking out about it. We're not freaking out whenever that pops up and everyone's just like, would you look at that? He has AI arms. Well, what if they take control of you, Dr. Otto Octavius? What? I can't get over it. How insane that 20 years later, we are still... Siri is a dumb bitch. You think she could help control and like take over these arms and like help you conquer the fucking world and hold the power of the sun in the palm of your hands? No, I don't think so. Okay? At my real life job, I run a big robot machine. It's stupid as shit and doesn't work half the time. How in the world did Otto Octavius do this? It's absurd. It's absurd, and I genuinely can't get over it. I can't get over it. Genuinely top of my problems. Genuinely. This is not a bit. I am not like over exaggerating. I'm upset when I watch that scene. Okay, whatever. Alright, so I spent way too long talking negatively, but hopefully this will make it so I never have to talk negatively about the Raimi movies on the internet ever again, because I did say, at the top of this, I love these movies. Spider-Man 1 is the gold standard of what we currently consider modern superhero movies. It's simple. It's not trying to fill the movie to the brim with as much as it possibly can, and it's not trying to just set up or tie into 20 other movies. Spider-Man 1 is telling a simple story. A kid that most people don't want to look at twice is bitten by a scientifically modified spider that gives him powers that relate to said spider, and we follow his journey of becoming a hero. We understand his motivations. With great power comes great responsibility. Boom. Done. Peter knows exactly why he needs to be a hero. It's so no one else has to feel the pain of losing a loved one like he did. And through the actions of the villain, we understand why Peter wants to keep his identity a secret. It's all for the people he cares about. The Green Goblin is one of my favorite superhero villains, and Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin is my favorite Spider-Man villain. A scientist about to lose it all chooses to risk his own life over his company and is taken over by his worst inner demons who force Norman to do absolutely horrific things. The Goblin is pure evil and wants nothing but chaos. A truly opposing ideology to that of Spider-Man, which is good and wants nothing but for people to be safe. It makes all their scenes together so captivating. And their last fight where Goblin is just beating Spider-Man down and there's no music playing, it's just happening. And Spider-Man's going to lose until he finds his motivation. And the music comes back, and Spider-Man starts winning, and then ending with the Goblin's own evil attempt at deception being the thing that ultimately led to his demise. Like that's it. That's all it needed to be. And all in 2 hours. Gold standard. So what do you do after the gold standard? Well, you take everything you previously established and you use it to guide where the next part of the story goes. And in the case of Spider-Man 2, it was continuing to focus on the man part of Spider-Man, the part that makes him human. And honestly, what's more human than having mental health problems? Yeah, Spider-Man 2 is about Peter's mental health. We see just how much Peter is going through and trying to deal with in his personal life, and just how much all that's being affected by being a hero. And it all leads to this point where he gets mentally locked up. No one took his powers away. Like, it's not a physical block. Like, no, he is struggling mentally with everything that's been piling up. Peter is all stressed out and doesn't have clear motivation anymore. And Peter isn't afraid to take a look at his life and decide to focus on himself. It's incredibly human and incredibly relatable. Sure, we're not all burdened with saving the city from psychos every year, but I'm sure that you found yourself in a place where maybe you don't like your job, or your classes suck, or you don't see your friends anymore, or you're dealing with family problems, or whatever. It's all gonna start having a negative effect on you. And it really is important to look at everything in your life and say it's okay to take some time for yourself because you deserve to be happy. Peter looked at his life and chose to try to make himself happier because he didn't have the same motivation to keep doing what he was doing. And now eventually, yes, he did find it again, but it was only after he took a step back and he took that time for himself. Guys, this was in 2004. Someone who remembers that time better than I do because I was 4. Was mental health like accepted? Because I'm pretty sure there's still a stigma around the whole like mental health subject now. And I feel like it being more widely accepted by the average person is still a newer idea. Like, did Spider-Man 2 start to normalize self-care and mental health issues? Yeah, okay, no, best superhero movie ever. Do we need to talk about the rest? Do you know the rest? Have you seen a better video about Spider-Man 2? I guess if you haven't or don't want to spend an hour watching a YouTube video, Spider-Man 2 does all the same good stuff that Spider-Man 1 did. Simple plot and great depth to characters. Dr. Otto Octavius being a scientist who ended up being corrupted by his inner demons and ends up putting people in harm's way for his own selfish reasons, with an opposing ideology to that of our hero. And You did the same thing. All right, well, ain't broke, don't fix it. Hey, no, shut up. Shut up. You'll get your time. Shut up. Get out of here. So Otto is very similar to Norman. So how do you take that character archetype and make it better? Well, you give it a strong motivation. How do you get that strong motivation? You take away everything else from Otto's life. The world no longer sees him as a great scientist, but now a madman. And the love of his life is now gone. And it is all his fault. It's all because of his obsession with holding the power of the sun in the palm of your hand. Now, that is all he has left in the world, and he will make it work no matter what. So yeah, I do get it. Spider-Man 2 is a great and arguably one of the best superhero movies ever made. Great. Have I pleased you now, internet gods? Okay, it's time for Spider-Man 3, and you know what? It's bad, but also great. Now, it's bad because there's too much thrown in, yada yada yada, but it's great because if you can just be a meme lord for like 2.5 hours and go into this movie knowing it's too much, you can have such a great time just laughing at it. I mean, look at this. This is hilarious. But if you don't want to laugh at it for some reason, it still has the great action sequences, and Sandman is a great villain. For the first time, it's not a corrupted scientist, but just a man who wants to help his daughter. He's going about it in the wrong way, but his motivation is similar to that of Spider-Man. It's to help someone. And Spider-Man is now with the corruption of the symbiote and out for personal gain. You see, they flipped it. Now Peter's the corrupted scientist. They see how they did that? But back to Sandman, I mean, the scene when he is turned to sand and he's reaching for the locket, man. What else do you need from this character? It is so beautiful and so heartbreaking. And I also didn't hate the retconning with the whole Uncle Ben stuff. It just didn't really bother me. My one issue with him, well, okay, other than that he's not in it more, was that I don't really know why he would team up with Venom in the first place, but let's just go with the Spider-Man 3 video game version of it, because that's, boom, perfect Sandman. Now, we also got one Peter Parker who in Spider-Man 3 is just at the top of the world. I mean, he's got the girl, he's got the job, and he can still help people who need him. But now they really, really love him. I mean, this man is getting a whole ass parade, and he got the key to the city, and he just couldn't be happier. Yes, the idea of a hero like Superman would be, he'd be embarrassed, and he'd be very humble about it all. But this is Peter Parker. Okay, this is Peter, the loser Parker. Peter, even the bus driver hates him, Parker. Peter, the almost dead guy from that time Flash would have punched a hole in his head, Parker. Can we talk about that for a second? You know how strong you have to be to dent a metal locker like it was a pillow? If it wasn't for the Spider-Man powers, no shot he doesn't die in that hallway. He is dead. Anyway, of course Peter's gonna love the praise and attention after what I can only assume was 16 years of just being eviscerated by bullies and nerds and bus drivers. So giving Peter the symbiote when he's at his highest was an interesting play, because it kind of just inflates his ego to a point where it probably never would have gotten without it. So yeah, I think it was a fun take on the symbiote, and overall, I don't hate this movie. Definitely the worst of the three though, and it was not a great send-off for this character, but also I don't think it was supposed to be because Spider-Man 4 stuff. But anyway, other stuff I like. I like how they constantly find ways to make every scene a meaningful scene. They found a way to make delivering pizzas thrilling. The way we follow Peter on his bike as he speeds through traffic, constantly swerving back and forth, almost getting hit by everything, every second, with the music building, along with the stakes as we cut to the clock showing us how precious Peter's time is, and all that before Peter transforms into Spider-Man for the first time in the movie, where his pizza delivery is no longer priority when some dumbass kids almost get run over. But the entire time, no one forgets about the pizza is still the most important thing, especially to the receptionist. My guy, did you need to go that hard on delivering pizzas? That was the start to a superhero movie. How did you do that? Now, the movies, they can't constantly be this intense, otherwise, we're gonna burn out. So we need the slower scenes to catch our breath, and somehow, Raimi makes those awkward elevator rides incredibly enjoyable to watch. I mean, it's 1 minute of Spider-Man in an elevator with someone who we have never seen before, and we will never see again, as Spider-Man talks about how
It gets kind of itchy.
Now I want like a 15-minute like short or deleted scene or something where the elevator breaks down and it's just these two waiting for someone to help get them out of the elevator. Like somehow these movies have found a perfect balance between intense action, goofy comedy, and the more somber moments of character growth. And none of them ever overshadow one another or ever feel like they're misplaced, and it all really helps with the pacing. Like, okay, here's what you need to know. Let's get to the next scene, and you don't need to see him make the suit. You can figure it out, and it's a lot of that. It goes from one plot point to the next and the next with just enough info to never have you confused by what's happening, which makes sure we get plenty of time to spend with Peter and to move the story along, and there's plenty of fun little otherwise pointless scenes to keep you entertained. Now, something I think the Raimi movies have still done better than any superhero movie is the small bits of world building through very fun side and background characters. Very simple idea, just people who have one or two lines or move in a certain way that gives so much personality to a character that honestly has no right to have that much character in the first place. Yeah, I'm talking about J. Jonah Jameson, and I'm talking about Betty Brant and Gwen Stacy. Sure, plenty of named characters who have multiple appearances, but I'm also talking about like Bonesaw. I'm talking about Mr. Aziz. I'm talking about this receptionist and the guy who shares the elevator ride, the guy who wants the pizza. I'm talking about this guy. I'm talking about this guy. Like, this is also fantastic because it helps give the city so much personality. Spider-Man isn't just saving the people of New York, he's saving these people. And it helps for the moments when New York steps up to help Spider-Man. New York is a living, breathing city full of so many interesting people who sing about Spider-Man in the streets and eat strange roof pizza. But it's so alive compared to anything else we see in superhero movies, and for me, that really does add a lot. And you know what? While I'm talking about characters, can we talk about this man?
It's Brock, sir. Edward Brock Jr.
What's that smell?
It's Brock, sir. Edward Brock Jr.
I mean, this man literally introduces himself to God like this.
It's Brock, sir. Edward Brock Jr.
My guy, do you think that God doesn't know who you are already? Do you think you are about to shake God's hand? And then he just asks God to smite a man for exposing him for being a liar. My God, I love this man. I need to know everything about this man. Where is his trilogy? Where is it? Sam Raimi, where is this man's trilogy? Now, realistically, every other point that I could bring up, I'm sure you're already aware of. The iconic soundtrack, the fantastic and terrible casting, the fun Easter eggs, and the one that I can't not bring up, the action. I mean, it's pretty good in Spider-Man 1 for like 2002 standards, but Spider-Man 2 has like god-tier action sequences. The train, that beautiful goddamn train. Just look at it. I mean, there is just so much to love about these movies, and honestly, I think you're probably already aware of everything, but even if you're not, there are better videos made by people who care so much more about these movies than I do, and they do a much better job at explaining everything. But that doesn't mean that I don't love these movies, because again, I do genuinely love these movies. They aren't quite my favorites, but I totally see why they are favorites for so many other people. And I honestly think that if you are introducing someone to the world of superhero movies, start with the Nick Cage Ghost Rider. Don't ask me why. Just do it. But then after that, like, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is, like, this is a really solid trilogy of movies. For 20-year-old movies, it is very impressive. For all that, I am giving the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
Oh boy, yeah.
That's my rating. I'm doing ratings, but the ratings are meaningless and have no real scale or context. Okay, bye.